The Philippine government's budget deficit widens in September. Percent drop in share sales this year. It's still Southeast Asia's booming burst, affecting hundreds of thousands of households. We'll talk about this and more with Meralco's head of the Nasdaq rebounded, boosted by Tesla's positive earnings outlook and a dip in trade from a 3-month high. The benchmark S&P 500 gained 0.2%. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, on the other hand, went the other way, down by 0.3%.
Going on in the market overall, I mean, yes, just about the S&P. The S&P from when they cut rates is up around 3.5%. That's big, and the reason why is it was just a complete reversal. People had thought, hey, they went down, yields went up, and people flocked towards markets. So, equity market looking good. You had some surprises.
Over in Europe, markets ended mixed as investors digested a fresh round of earnings reports. The FTSE 100 remained flat. The DAX awaiting Japan's general election this weekend. The Nikkei 225 is down nearly 0.8%, while the Kospi rose 0.6%, and the S&P ASX 200 over in Australia is up by 0.4%. In the commodities market, oil price rises as traders keep their focus on geopolitical developments in the Middle East and the outlook for supply. Gold, meanwhile, is down 10% to 7,733. Now, the national government's budget deficit widens in September. The budget shortfall rose 8.9% year-on-year and 73.3 billion pesos. This comes as expenditures grew 13.15% to 573 billion pesos, outpacing revenues, which increased 17% to nearly 300 billion pesos. From January to September, the total deficit narrowed by 1.35% year-on-year to 970.2 billion pesos. President Bongbong Marcos is expected to sign the so-called Create More bill next month. Senate President Chiz Escudero told the Arrancada Philippines Forum in Pasay City that the bill could specifically be signed on the 11th. Escudero adds that they are working closely with the Office of the President and the Office of the Executive Secretary on the versions that they are approving to ensure that there is no back and forth delays. The measure aims to reduce the tax rate for both domestic and foreign companies from 25% to 20%. It also proposes the elimination of value-added tax on essential services. The goal is to attract greater foreign investment by creating a more predictable and sustainable business environment. The Trade Department guarantees that it's prepared to assist local businesses impacted by severe tropical storm Christine. Secretary Cristina Roque announced that they have been actively engaging with private sector partners to mobilize resources and to provide immediate assistance. The agency is urging affected businesses to visit their nearest negosyo centers for DTI regional offices for details on available assistance. Severe tropical storm Christine has caused widespread power outages across several areas. To discuss this situation, we're joined by Meralco's head of corporate communications, Joe Zaldariaga. Good morning, Joe, and thanks for being here with us.
Yes, good morning, Maiki. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, well, Joe, talk to us about what's going on over with you guys. What is the extent of the damage to Meralco's infrastructure?
Well, as of last night, we peaked at around 566,000 customers without electricity, but they were down now to 412,000 more or less. So as the storm moved out of the Philippine area of responsibility, we were able to somehow push through and ramp up our restoration activities. The most significant development last night was when Metro Manila was likewise hit by strong winds, and so this caused many areas in the metropolis to be without power. And as we speak, we are looking at around 30,000 customers without electricity in Metro Manila. And we hope to be able to cut it in half by tomorrow insofar as the entire franchise area or the areas that have been affected by Christine is concerned.
Joe, in terms of the damage to Meralco's infrastructure, what have been the hardest hit areas?
Well, the hardest hit is Cavite, Laguna, and Batangas. But we're still in the process of really assessing what the actual damage on the ground is. But the initial information that we have is that these are the three main provinces that were severely hit by the storm, and we are still continuously conducting repair and restoration works in these areas. And as we speak, these are also the three provinces that has the most number of outages recorded so far.
Joe, how do the numbers, how does the damage to infrastructure compare vis-a-vis the previous other storms? Just to give us a sense of the enormity of the task that you're facing right now.
Well, I could probably compare this in my close to 36 years in Meralco. I could probably compare this to the many howlers that affected us in the past. And the primary difference probably would be that somehow the initiatives that you have undertaken insofar as our networks upgrading and resiliency initiatives compared to the past is much better now. That's why we were able to somehow withstand the pressure brought about by the strong winds and the heavy rains foisted on us by this weather disturbance. And we continue to work around the clock, Maiki, and also just to provide all our customers the assurance that in the coming days we will continue to work non-stop 24/7 until the last household's electric service has been restored.
Yeah, very busy time for you guys at Meralco, Joe. What assistance or support are you going to be giving to the people that have been without power? People and businesses, will you be waiving any fees or offering payment extensions or providing other forms of assistance on account of the storm?
Yes, it has been our standard operating procedure to really give relief to the areas that have been affected even in the past. And aside from the networks team that has been doing the restoration, our customer retail services group has also been assisting customers that may need assistance and help at this time. And parallel to that is the relief efforts being undertaken currently by the One Meralco Foundation insofar as relief assistance is concerned.
Okay. Would you have an idea, Joe, of the total damage in terms of cost to your own infrastructure? And how might this impact your operational budget or financial targets for the year as a publicly listed firm?
But it's still too early, Mikey, to determine because, as I said, we're still collating all of the information insofar as the damage is concerned. But as part of our resiliency initiatives, we understand that things like this happen. Weather disturbances, typhoons, storms, it really impacts on the Meralco franchise area. And this has been already put into consideration as far as our operations is concerned. So the focus right now really, as far as Meralco is concerned, is on restoration. We are zeroing in on making sure that the last remaining customer will be energized. That's our focus at this point. All other issues will probably come into the picture once we have fully restored power to our franchise area.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Now, you mentioned something earlier, damage on the ground. And looking at the bigger picture, what I wanted to ask you was that here in the Philippines, majority of our power distribution infrastructure, our network is above ground. You know, given that the Philippines is prone to natural disasters, can you talk to us about why we haven't implemented electricity distribution infrastructure below ground as they do in other countries? And yes, the upfront costs are high, but given that the Philippines is so prone to natural disasters, might it help, you know, make us more resilient in terms of this if all the power distribution network was actually embedded below ground?
Well, Mikey, you have to balance insofar as operations and cost is concerned. There is a very heavy cost to pay if you will convert all of your facilities underground. And so this will impact on the rates that customers will bear. And there is a certain limit to how much really electricity cost should be in terms of the rates that you provide residential, commercial, and industrial customers. If you will make it everything underground, then that may impact heavily on the cost, and this is something probably that customers may not be able to really absorb. So you have to look into that as well. It's not just being able to prevent interruptions, but more than that is to balance the cost implications as well.
Yeah, that's right. Cost is a huge an implication. How much of an upside? I mean, how much more would it cost if, would you have any idea, how much more would that cost if power was?
We haven't really gone into that, Mikey. As far as we're concerned, we're zeroing in, we're concentrating on making our overhead lines resilient. Somehow we are able to do that. In terms of the number of damage compared to the past, we have somehow managed that very well. And as I said, it's really balancing the cost implications with your operating initiatives. You have to be able to balance that. It's either customers pay more, but we don't want that to happen. So what we want to really do is to make our electricity rates cost efficient, affordable, and at the same time strengthening our facility the best we can.
All right, thank you for your time this morning, Joe Zaldariaga, Morocco's head of corporate communications.
Thank you.
Right. Now, severe tropical storm Christine has caused widespread destruction in many parts of the country. For those who wish to help those affected by it, you may reach out to the Tanging Yaman Foundation and Tabang Bicol of Ateneo de Naga, part of the Jesuit Communications Group. You can find donation information on their Facebook pages. Any contribution will go a long way. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back to Basis Points. Trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange opened just a few minutes ago. Let's take a look at the initial figures. Right now, in early trade, we're seeing some buying action at the local burst. After losing 1.1% yesterday, the PSC index is up by 0.4% to 73.15. The broader all shares index up by about 0.4% as well to 40.23. Zooming out a bit, just taking everything into stock. After hitting a 7-month low of 61.58 last June 21st, the PSE index has rallied over 20%, effectively entering bull market territory in September. Now, the gains have come on the back of a cocktail of lower interest rates coupled with a dovish stance on monetary policy. Now, taking a look at some broader metrics, for the month, the PSE, however, is down by 1.1%. However, if you look at it from a year-to-date basis, the PSE index is up by 13%. And according to PSE President Mon Monzon, he expects the market bull run to continue. He says he even expects the PSE index to hit 8,000 to 8,600. That's an upside of about 9% to 17% from our current levels. And also something to take into consideration, our local bourse is Southeast Asia's best performer for the year. Now, taking a look at the PSE index again, the financials, industrial, holding firm, services, and mining and oil counters and property counters are all in the green, supporting the rise of the PSE index early in trade. Again, the PSE index is up by 0.4% to 73.15. Now, meanwhile, the currency trading resumes after a two-day suspension due to severe tropical storm Christine. The peso opens at 57.85 against the greenback, stronger than its previous close of 57.88 on October 22nd. Now, more news on the Philippine Stock Exchange. The PSE is headed for a 37% slump in share sales this year after a weak and volatile first half soured investors' appetite for equities. PSE President and CEO Ramon Monzon says capital raising through the stock exchange will reach 88.52 billion pesos, a decline from 141 billion pesos last year. Despite this, Monzon is optimistic that Philippine equities will extend their bull run into 2025 on the back of cooling inflation and monetary easing. While the PSE index sank to a 7-month low in June, it did enter bull market territory in September, making the local bourse Southeast Asia's best performer this year. Now, up ahead, this year, the bourse will have one IPO and one stock rights offering. Cebu-based fuel retailer Topline is scheduled to make its debut on November 22nd, while FINMA will list these shares sold via a 1 billion peso stock rights offering. 3 companies will also hold follow-on offerings. These are Arthalan, valued at 3 billion pesos, Dito at 4.2 billion pesos, and Cignal Manufacturing. Ascent Corporation, the renewable energy arm of billionaire Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala, is expanding its global footprint. The company will invest $18 million to start construction on a 70-megawatt solar project in Bangladesh. Ascent says this is part of its $200 million equity commitment to its joint venture with Singapore-based solar developer IB Voigt. The joint venture, established in August of 2023, aims to fund large-scale solar power plants across Asia. Currently, ASEN has over 5 gigawatts of capacity in operation and under construction in several countries, including Australia, Vietnam, India, and the United States. Higher energy sales and solar projects boosted Aboitiz Power's 9-month profit. From January to September, the company's net income reached 27.3 billion pesos, a 2% increase compared to the same period last year, despite higher depreciation and interest costs from GN Power's Units 1 and 2. Aboitiz Power sold 26,910 gigawatt hours of energy, also up by 2% from last year. We're taking a quick breather. Basis Points will be right back. Welcome back. The World Bank vows to support the Philippine agriculture sector and human capital development. Finance Secretary Ralph Recto announces the pledge came during a high-level dialogue in Washington, D.C. Recto says that the World Bank committed to increasing productivity and income for Filipino farmers, modernizing the agriculture sector, and supporting education initiatives. Recto asserts that the bank's assistance will help mitigate inflation and boost economic growth. Japan's former top currency diplomat is poised to become the next head of the Asian Development Bank. Masato Kanda is the sole contender as the ADB already closed its nomination period. The organization will begin voting on Monday and results will be out on November 28th. Since the ADB was founded in 1966, its top post has always been filled by someone from Japan, which, along with the United States, is the bank's biggest shareholder. Kanda will succeed Masatsu Asakawa, who's retiring in February next year. And that's it for Basis Points. I'm Maiki Oreta. We'll be back next week for more news on the financial markets and more. Keep it here on BNC, the Billionario News Channel, always on top.